right. Well, thank you for joining everybody. I know we're going to have a few more people come on over the next couple minutes, but as you all probably know, I'm Kim here at FAR. And if you signed up prior to about 3 o'clock yesterday, so I know that there's 3 of you who would not be on this, but for everybody else, you should have received a Starbucks gift card from me, which is not really for me. It's actually from Topside Federal Credit Union, who is our wonderful sponsor for today. If we were all gathered together, Topside would have given us lunch. So since we can't all be together and have lunch, the least we can do is provide you all with maybe a cup of coffee or a sweet treat at some point. So thank you so much to Topside Federal Credit Union. And we are joined today by Laura Gilchrist. So I'll hand it over to her to talk a little bit about Topside.
Great.
Welcome, Laura.
Thank you so much, Kim. And I hope everyone enjoys their Starbucks. And I appreciate her getting those out to everyone. But my name is Laura Gilchrist. I am with Topside Federal Credit Union. That used to be NSWC Federal Credit Union. We are still the same local community credit union that supports the community. We just have new colors and a new name. We still have a new logo and also a new logo. So also we do have the same products and services. Nothing changes about your accounts. You are still eligible through FAR. What we wanted the community to know is that you didn't have to have ties to the base to be part of our credit union family. So we wanted all the communities, King George County government, all the surrounding school systems that we support, we wanted all of them to know that they are eligible to be members of the credit union. And so all of you at FAR are eligible too. So please, I do encourage you to go to Topside FCU and go to our website, open up your accounts, then your whole family is eligible too, and see what great products and services that we have to offer to all of our members at Topside Federal Credit Union. So I know Nick is going to have some wonderful things to say about King George County, and I will go ahead and let you guys get back to it. But thank you for letting me be part of this, and thank you for letting us be part of the community and supporting FAR. So thank you so much. Enjoy.
You, Laura.
Thank you, Laura.
If anybody did not get their card, please check your spam, your deep spam, if you've got one on like an Outlook and then one on your website. We found Lori's in her one on her on the web. So please look in your spam. And if you did not get one, now for those of you who signed up after yesterday, I will get those to you. But if you were not able to access it, let me know and I'll have Starbucks resend the link. Nick has been wonderful. For those of you who don't know Nick, he has a long history. I just learned that he graduated from Orange County High School, so he has been here for a long time. And Nick has been wonderful because he has done, this is his 3rd meeting he's done for me in the last 2 weeks. So we want this to be a discussion. So certainly one thing I have always experienced with King George agents is that you have lots of questions and you're not afraid to engage. So please don't have the fact that we're on Zoom be any different. I want y'all to ask questions. We want to make sure this is as meaningful for you as possible. So put it in the chat, unmute yourself and ask. We want this to be a great discussion. So Nick Miner is the Director of Economic Development and Tourism with King George County. And I am really excited to have him here today to talk about certainly the things that we always want to know about new businesses coming in. Certainly the impacts of COVID are something that people are interested about. The new bridge is a huge deal. But I also want to hear, some of your more individual questions as you live and work in the counties. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Nick Miner. Nick, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kim. So I'm really happy to be here with you guys and to address you guys. I'm really excited for King George County and some of the things we got going, especially on broadband, especially on economic development projects. I know since I've been here, it'll be a year and a week, actually. We've seen a lot of progress, especially on the tourism side of things, definitely on the economic development side of things, and broadband, which I'll get into, is what we're really excited about. And I know I'm pretty sure the realtors are excited about because it really opens up the market for you guys that maybe you really haven't been able to access because people just aren't interested. But I'll just sort of dive into just giving you guys an overview of the type of project activity I'm looking at, some of the tourism things we're looking at, and then I'll jump right on to broadband. So as of right now, we're working 5 active economic development projects, mainly manufacturing. They're all looking in the industrial park. There's also some energy projects around. With the closing or decommissioning of the Birchwood Power Plant, there's been a lot of interest from energy sector type of businesses who want to get access to that to that location as well as in and around that location. So I've actually engaged with the Community Development Department to update the ordinance to essentially accommodate that. And really what this does is the energy sectors, what it really does, it's a low impact type of investment. You know, not a lot of traffic, but it's still industrially zoned. So the revenue to the county is still good. The next thing on the tourism side of things, the county was recently rewarded the Wonderlove grant for $8,300. And what we're going to do with that is essentially market the county's tourism assets, that being Caledon State Park, Whitehall Winery, Belgrove Plantation, the Dirt Trail, the Dahlgren Heritage Museum, and the Machota Creek Marina. So really all outdoor type of locations where you're really not going to be confined to one space, with with Caledon State Park really being the hub of that. So what we're trying to do is market the county as an outdoor recreational area, and basically giving people an itinerary of where to visit, how to visit, and creating a landing page for that, and really putting some money behind it and some really good designs. We're working with a marketing firm out of Fredericksburg to help us put that together. The next thing is at the 300th anniversary events, we have resumed planning those again. We're looking at 2 events this fall, a grand finale and potentially some sort of gala, outdoor gala, where people can be safe and still sort of enjoy themselves and have a good time. So we're in the process of planning that and identifying locations for those as well. So excited about that. The next thing is that if you guys aren't on our email chains, we've been sending out a lot of updates, it's been a bi-weekly update. There's also been a newsletter, a quarterly newsletter that we've been putting out. And on that just sort of summarizes and recaps what we've been doing, because even during this pandemic, economic development, we have been very busy. We really had to turn it on because 1, the businesses needed us to, and 2, there's a lot of money flowing around, and we can get access to that money. We can do a lot of good in the community. So we've been really working hard. And then to sort of touch on the bridge a little, things are, as scheduled. I've heard no setbacks. If you're in the county, you see the trucks driving around the Dahlgren area, stopping at the food places. I believe most of them are staying in the hotels around there, so that's good for the hotel industry. The base has just went through a change of command. Captain O'Leary just changed duty stations, and I'm blanking on the new commander's name now, but he comes from Capitol Hill, which I think is going to be beneficial to us in the long range. Him having those ties to Capitol Hill, and if you live in King George, you know how bad the gates are. So hopefully he can, loosen up some of the Fed's pockets to get some money to update those gates up there. We're continuing to engage with the technology office there to do tech transfer. What tech transfer is essentially taking the patents and intellectual property that Dahlgren creates and trying to create businesses out of them, trying to find entrepreneurs and or investors who will take that publicly available intellectual property and try to see if they can make either manufacture something or make some sort of product to sell to the commercial market or sell it back to the government. And that's why that industrial park is so hot right now, why it's so important that we continue to market that and continue to do site development in the industrial park. And then sort of leading from there, my office is going to be filing the special exception permits needed for manufacturing in an industrial park. That's something that, since I've been working in the Fredericksburg region in the year that I've been here, nobody has really talked about, but it's such an easy step to take to sort of cut that time in half for businesses who want to come into the county. Because, if you get a special exception permit, that's 90 days that you have to wait. So we're going to try to cut that time down and start working with people and start working with engineering firms to really start to recruit business. And then last but not least, not sure if you guys are aware, but the Board of Supervisors recently approved $500,000 to support, $500,000 to support the Dominion rural broadband pilot project. And what that does is essentially tap into the fiber infrastructure that Dominion is going to place at their substations all the way down to the northern neck. And what we're going to try to do is piggyback off of that to deploy broadband to every underserved home in the county and in the northern neck. Now, our county has put our funding up for it, I'm not sure what the other localities in the Northern Neck have done yet. I know that they did sign an MOU back in March to support that, but I'm not sure if they put their funding up yet, but our Board of Supervisors have. So we're really excited about that. Now, that deployment of that broadband is contingent upon a SCC vote, a State Corporation Commission's vote that will take place, I believe, this fall. And what they're really voting for is that they can use the power lines as distribution for broadband. And then they have contracted a broadband company to deploy the last mile. So you can use the co-op lines, the Dominion distribution lines to get to the homes, but where the co-op or where the Dominion lines don't go, who's going to bring the broadband to those homes? And that's where the broadband company, All Points Broadband, that's where they come into play. And All Points Broadband is a hybrid wireless and direct line or direct to home broadband provider out of Loudoun County. I believe they have contracts in Kentucky, Tennessee, Western Virginia. I believe there may be some in West Virginia as well, but they're a very good company, highly recommended, and they've been great to work with so far. With that said, I mean, I'll take any questions you guys have. Sure.
Do you know if that's for Westmoreland County also?
Yes, ma'am. So anybody in the Northern Neck, honestly. So it starts from King George and it goes all the way down. I think Northumberland, Westmoreland, Richmond counties is where they're going to touch.
And in the fall, correct?
So the fall is when they do the vote. I apologize. So the fall is when they vote to approve them utilizing the power lines in order to get the broadband to the homes. Construction in King George County is projected 2021, fall of 2021. That's when it's projected to begin.
Thank you.
Yep. I know it was a lot of information. If you guys have any, want me to recap anything I went over.
Nick, I want to piggyback on what you just said. So with broadband starting,
I have a
can you hear me?
question.
You just fine.
Okay, so with broadband, with the plan starting, and if they approve it and then it starts in the fall
Yep.
of 2021, when do you think it would, when do you think King George would be set up? Because that is really important.
Oh yeah, most definitely. So what I've heard, and nothing is concrete now, so I just want to make that clear to everybody. The county has fully backed it. We have put our money up. We put our money where our mouth is, but nothing is concrete as of now. But what they've said is that in order to get it to every home, they've estimated a year. So by the fall of 2022 is when people can expect to have it at their homes, right? And that, I think, to be honest with you, I think that's a perfect scenario.
Yeah.
But you know, it's as soon as they start laying fiber, I mean, that's when I'm going to get excited. I'm not going to get excited until I start seeing people dig holes. So.
Right.
Nick, I had a question. I'll jump in. Oh, unless somebody else wants to.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Nick, this is Linda Murray. You had a King George email chain. How
Yes,
do we
ma'am.
get on that?
So I need to make it more available as far as how you sign up. But what I have done, if we've corresponded in the past or if you've inquired about information, I usually just add you to there. But what I can do, Linda, if you email me, I'll drop you on there, and then I need to figure out a way to get people so they can sign up automatically or just share a link or something like that.
Okay, that sounds great. And Kim, if you could put his email up on the chat area, then I can do that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So Nick, I wanted to ask a question. If I'm not mistaken, King George has adopted a new mixed use ordinance.
Yes, I believe this was,
Like a
be
year
careful with your
ago.
questions. Be careful with your questions because it was adopted before I got here. I just know that even when at my time at FRA, King George has been pushing mixed use for a while now. It's just sort of figuring out where they'd like it.
Well, and I didn't want to ask about what it's going to look like or the mixed use aspect,
yeah.
but from your perspective in economic development, how do you see that working with what you do? What kind of businesses do you think, you would look to come into something like that, since it would be a relatively new concept for the county?
I get emails every week. What are we doing to attract new restaurants? So restaurants, definitely. I think office space, if you would have asked me 6 months ago, I would have said office space. Now I'm not too sure. I think maybe that could be some sort of restaurants and maybe apartments or something like that if we were to get it now. You know, office space in this county, we definitely need it because of the base. The contractors down there, the spaces that they have down there are a little outdated, and Dahlgren recruits, you know, young talent. They go directly to the source and they recruit people straight out of college. And when those students get here, or, you know, and whether they're a contractor or the base, when they get here, Dahlgren at that point is competing against Northern Virginia and all the other major metro areas for their talent. So having updated office space or Class A office space is a must need in King George, you know, if not now, in the future. A lot of the contractors like Booz Allen, TSC, and I believe Simventions, they've all updated their office space down there within the last year or so, I believe. They have great spaces, hybrid spaces where you come in, you run a desk. They have these nice little co-working office spaces. So it's down there and they're sort of moving to that. The spaces I'm concerned about are the much older ones down there where the rent is much lower and it's been there for a while. I don't really want to name any names because I'm not sure who's repping what.
I just want to ask a quick follow-up, and this is just your
Yeah.
opinion.
Sure.
So can you touch on, from your days at FRA and from where you are now, the apparent sort of contradiction of, I hear a lot, and this is obviously before COVID, that we had a dearth of Class A space, that we really needed more space here. But then you drive around and you see the building in Cowan Crossing is not full.
Yeah.
And right, like the River Run Office Park that was down near Massaponax High was empty for a long time. How does that work in your world?
So that's a really good question, but I think from an FRA perspective, what we get from the projects that I've seen when I was working there was that these businesses are looking for they're looking for a very particular space, right? I remember it was a contractor that was moving out of Northern Virginia, and they were looking for a small town Class A space that was less than $15 a square foot. And I thought to myself, where in the world are they going to find that at, right? You're probably not going to find it in Fredericksburg. But I think space like that could be possible in King George, and that's not really to toot my own horn in King George, but the cost of doing business in King George is a little bit cheaper than downtown Fredericksburg, or even Garrisonville and Stafford. So it could be possible. Something like that could be possible in King George, but I just think it's very specific as to what people are looking for. If we get broadband in these rural areas, something like that is possible now. A contractor will start looking to Westmoreland. Westmoreland has a, what do you call it? It's it's a sole source contracting area, and I'm just blank. Hub zone. They have a hub zone in Westmoreland. So if they were to build Class A office space in that hub zone, then that's a great opportunity for them, for Westmoreland to capitalize that, especially if they get the broadband they need. Now you're not talking about, you're talking about a rural area that's competing with major contracts with a rural cost of doing business, and that's hard to compete against.
Hey, Nick, I have a different question for you.
Sure.
For as long as I can remember, the word apartments was a taboo word in King George.
Yeah.
And yet they can't build them fast enough in Fredericksburg.
I know.
Do you know of any projects, or has the mentality of the county changed towards accepting apartments out that way?
I'm gonna say that the apartments, so there have been, since I've been here, there have been 2 proposed apartment projects. I don't know what happened to them. I think they got submitted to the county and they probably just got lost in the abyss or something like that. But there was one plan for Dahlgren and there was one plan for the courthouse. Like I said, these were projected site plans. These weren't anything concrete. I think the property in Dahlgren needed to be rezoned, and I think the property near the courthouse needed to be rezoned.
I know there are very few properties in the county that are zoned appropriately for apartments.
Right.
So if something went before the county, do you see the current board open-minded to that now?
It's hard for me to speak on it because I haven't seen one go before them. I would advocate for it. I would advocate hard for it, to be honest with you, because it's something that the county desperately needs,
Mhm.
because as we try to recruit a workforce, you need a younger workforce. And that's really what it comes down to. And we're not
Yeah.
talking about necessarily, quote unquote, low income housing, or it can be luxury apartments, but not everybody can afford a $350,000 house. So
You can ask anybody on this page, if you're trying to find a rental in King George for under $1,300 a month, you're
yeah,
not really going to find it. I mean, or it's not much. And it really befuddles me that, again, in Fredericksburg, Spotsy, Stafford, they're like mushrooms growing everywhere.
yeah.
Not a single one in King George, and I can't think the last apartment complex was built.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't want to take shots at anybody that I work with or that works for the county, but I think that really just comes down to who the Board of Supervisors appoint to the planning commissions, who they appoint to the EDAs. Because if they appoint people there that prioritize that kind of stuff, that look at it not just from a, what do we want this, what do we want the county to look
The
like,
county to
or
look
trying to have a trying to have a role character. If they look at it more so a workforce standpoint, a quality of life standpoint, growing the county standpoint, apartments are a must have.
Thanks.
So Nick, I have kind of a piggyback question on that. How much of an intersection in your world is there between business looking to locate in a place like King George and the availability and distribution of housing variety? Does the local housing market play into a company's decision to locate?
Absolutely. So, but not in the way that you would think, right? They're not going to look at how many houses are available. What they look at is the cost of living, and then they're going to look at your demographics on how your population is broken out from age demographics. They're going to look at how many 32-year-olds are in your area, your 28 to 35-year-olds, and then they're going to look at below that, right? And they're going to see, well, if you don't have enough in that particular demographic area, then they're going to know that they can't recruit young people, because the best thing about a business recruiting young people is that you don't have to pay them as much. You can continuously recruit young people, young talent, and then they can phase out, and you can keep feeding them in and keep feeding them in. So that's very important when they make decisions. I know that when I was at the FRA, we got a engineering project. A engineering firm wanted to move into the area, and we weren't selected. Not necessarily because of a site or that Fredericksburg area wasn't an attractive location, but we just didn't meet the demographics that a Richmond and Northern Virginia did. And they really look at that kind of stuff. How can they compete against the young talent if you got a Mary Washington, or if you got a university taking it all up? So population is very important, and the breakdown of it is very important. So as much as I try to stay out of housing, it is important to the economic viability of a county, most definitely.
So I know you said that was an engineering firm. Are there other business lines that Fredericksburg, the area, competes better on in terms of businesses locating here?
I mean, anything in professional technical services, we have a shot at. Anything in that engineering realm, marketing and advertising realm, definitely in the defense contractor world. I'm trying to get King George to where we compete on research and development projects, definitely on manufacturing projects. Building a blue collar base is so important to a community. I just don't think people really realize it. The service sector is very dominant, but manufacturing is the bread and butter really of any community, and you definitely need it. So it's just trying to find that balance. King George has a lot of professional and technical services companies. I mean, that's mainly off of the base, but trying to find that blue collar balance is really where you make your money. So.
Before I ask another one, I'll throw it out to anybody else. I don't want to monopolize. Any other questions from folks on the phones? Okay, so I'm going to ask a question about the bridge. From an economic development perspective, how do you see the bridge changing what you do and changing the face of the county in, say, I don't know, 5, 8, 10 years?
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely going to be much more commercial than it already is. 301 is going to be seen as a, I would say anyway, between 301 and 3, that intersection. Gosh, sometimes I get mixed up on the roads. I believe 205 and 301, that area as well. You'll probably start seeing development there. One of the things I'm concerned about is that we won't have enough staff community development department to really handle either the rezonings or the permits and the type of things that we're going to be looking at. So, right now we're in the process of hiring a new director, community development director, and I'm going to be there to essentially advocate for them to get more staffing, to update their systems, to improve their permit process, because I really can't do my job unless community development, the Commissioner of Revenue's office, unless we're all on the same page, unless we're all stepping in the same direction. So with that bridge coming in, if we start to see more commercial development, we need to be able to process them. We find a better process to get them through the system quicker, to make it simpler, if that's a word, and also to make it certain so they know when they come to the county that they know what to expect and they know that they're going to receive some sort of quality, customer service that they can rely on and depend on. So.
Hey, Nick.
Exclamation mark.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Hey, Nick, I have a question about you talking about the 205, 301 intersection there. There's no sewer at 205 and 301. Any expansion or update you got for us?
So I was just talking to somebody who came on to my department the other day about that. I'm working on so much right now that I've been meaning to contact Jonathan to talk about how we get. Jonathan Weekly is the general manager of the Service Authority, but that is very important, Dixie. I do realize that's the case, and I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to essentially approach the county administrator and the board of supervisors about how do we do something like that, because it's gonna come, and I'd hate for us to just sit back and wait for something like that to happen. If we need to extend water and sewer, to sort of figure out, how much does that cost, and what's a creative way for us to essentially pay for it. If we could find a developer who is interested and revitalizing that corridor or just building something in and around that area, I'm sure we could find a way to pay for it using either the tax revenue from that development or just figuring out a way to get it there. But we try to be very creative in what we do and how we approach problems over here. So I think it's possible. It's just attacking it. So.
Nick, can you give us any update on the village development and the other development off Owens Drive that Ryan Holmes started and kind of stopped?
Yeah. So the Ryan Holmes development, I believe, is Walnut Hill. I haven't heard too much about that. The last I heard is that they were struggling to get broadband to that potential development. That was the last thing I heard. I don't know.
They stopped the development for that reason?
I don't think they stopped it for that. That was just the last update I received. I think the last thing I heard is that they were at 3 or 4 homes. I mean, that might have been months ago though.
It seems like that project is stalled.
Yeah, maybe so. I haven't heard anything for the last 3 months. And that was the last thing I heard, was that they were having trouble trying to find somebody to provide broadband to the neighborhood. On the Villages project, that went to the Board of Supervisors, that then got kicked back to the Planning Commission probably about 2 months ago for further review. And I don't think that they've made any other progress. I think that they asked for more information on the contract between the developer and Mary Washington Hospital. And I don't think they've received anything yet. So I think they're still waiting on them to provide more information.
I was just going to mention too that the new landscaping along Route 3 that I know the 300th anniversary committee was working on looks really nice. Yeah. It's a shame that things couldn't come together for them this year.
Yeah, they did do it. I mean, that was something before I got here, but there's a lot of good things that the whole county was working towards before I got here, and I hate to take credit for any of that stuff. It looks really good. They're getting there.
It does.
Kim Johnson, did you have a question? I just want to make sure I wasn't muting you if you didn't want to be. Okay. And this is just, maybe everybody already knows this. What about the park on the next to the bridge? I know that was the last time we had, this might be a Neiman question, but probably about a year ago, we had Neiman talking about it, and that seems to be a very hot topic of discussion. And from a tourism perspective, that might be, important to you. I just wanted to get an update on what the status is of that.
So I heard, so I actually got an update about it yesterday. And what I've heard is that people are kicking around the idea of making it either an event venue or a joint museum for the King George Historical Society, the Dahlgren Heritage Museum, since it's looking like their site may be obsolete once that bridge comes in, and Ralph Bunche Alumni Association. So that's what I've heard so far, an event venue or a possible joint museum for those three organizations. They're trying to figure out what's the best use for it right now. I know that you'll probably see something here soon where the county's going to try to contract an engineering firm to figure out, how they go about remodeling that house for that specific purpose. But the county's very excited about what we could potentially do with it. Me personally, I'd like to see an event venue. But the Ralph Bunche Alumni Association, the King George Historical Society, and Dahlgren Heritage Museum, they definitely have a need. And so either way, I think that it would definitely be an asset for the county.
Well, I can tell you that certainly from a perspective of people who have events, there's not a ton of options in King George. There's certainly more with the estate at Whitehall we looked at the other day, which is just amazing. We can't wait to have something out there. And certainly the university has been a go-to for us for a long time. But to have another event space to host stuff would be great.
So just to put this on your radar, so the Planning Commission just approved Back Porch Winery off of Rollins Fork Road going towards Westmoreland. And that is a beautiful piece of property. It's a very, so what they did was they basically retrofitted an old barn, and it's so nice. And they just opened up, and then they also had the Blandino barn that was recently approved by the Planning Commission too. So those are 3 private locations. That's Whitehall, Back Porch, and Blandino Farm that you can potentially hold events in right now.
Well, that's great information. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I was just going to ask anybody on here if they're dealing with any new construction, if they're having any issues or anything like that with the county with permitting or anything like that.
Yeah, please, if you guys are having any issues, please contact my department. If you know of any businesses that are struggling during the pandemic, have them contact my department. We're more than happy to help them out.
Nick, when is Bradley Hudson retiring?
So I believe this winter, Dixie, he has, right now, we actually just I was on the hiring panel for his replacement. So I think they'll probably be making a decision soon.
So I just thought it might be interesting for folks. We will have a podcast coming out soon on broadband from King George and Orange County. But I'm sure a lot of folks are, have friends, or if yourself having to teach from home. Can you talk a little bit about the short-term stuff that the county is doing to provide connectivity for students? Because I'm sure if you're showing houses, people come down, they want to know, if we move soon, what's it going to be like down here?
Yeah. So currently, when it comes to school-age children, the county approved, I believe, $80,000 worth of MiFis with Verizon Wireless. So if you are someone who's in an underserved area, you can apply to receive one of those so you could do your work online. So they did have a response to that. The other thing is that the Board of Supervisors are looking at tapping into the broadband that connects the school systems. So there was a broadband grant that the county received not too long ago. Through the department, through the FCC, and they're trying to figure out a way to tap into that to provide broadband to the county. So in the short term, that's sort of what we're looking at. And then in my department, the EDA is looking at how to fund wireless internet in neighborhoods that have HOAs. So essentially, what we're attempting to do is grant the HOA money to stand up a tower to install wireless broadband on it. So, and we're just trying to figure out if this is something that we could potentially scale, or if this is something that HOAs are even interested in. But it's one of those things where you got to figure out all the technical aspects to it. What's the cost? Is it worth it? How much of an impact does it have on the community? I mean, there's a lot of things that go into making decisions like this before you spend taxpayer money.
Any other questions on broadband? I know this is such a big one right now. Okay, I'm just going to ask one question.
Sure.
A lot of the titles of your position is economic development and tourism.
Yeah.
The tourism always kind of seems a secondary thing. And while I live here and love King George, and one of the first things I did was get a permit for the rail trail because I think it's such a great amenity, I think a lot of people probably just pass through the county if they're taking 301. So from the county's perspective, what is the plan for tourism development? How much energy do you spend on that aspect of the job title?
So we're about to spend a lot of time on it. So when I got here, we were essentially just receiving tourism applications and trying to support county events, basically at an arm's length distance. But this fall and going into the winter, we're going to develop a tourism strategic plan and really try to nail down, how do we want to brand the county? How do we want people to think of us when they come here? And we're going to try to put some public dollars into some public spaces. And it's very important that we do this because King George is one of the only localities in the Fredericksburg region, I believe the only locality that is surrounded by 2 waterways. We have a lot of assets that we can market. We have a lot of different ways that we can market ourselves, and we can really separate ourselves from a tourism aspect from the other localities in the region. While Fredericksburg may have the Civil War and the battlefields and that sort of historical downtown, we can really capitalize on outdoor recreational activities and really concentrate on the county's beauty. It's one of those things that when I, before I even took the job, I told myself that this county has so much to offer. It's just figuring out a way, or at least get everybody moving in the same direction and how they view the county, how we market the county. We recently just put together some new logos for the county, the Visit King George logos that we're going to start, that you guys may start seeing pretty soon. But I'm very excited for what we can do. Like I said, it's only been a year here, and I really, got my feet settled in. I know where it is that I need to go from an economic development standpoint and a tourism standpoint. The strategic plan is going to be very important because I can really start to bring in people, outside folks to sort of get their perspective on the county and then sort of understand how the residents view the county, and then come up with this plan to essentially market it and start bringing in, those type of tourism dollars that the county really needs. So we already have the hotels, which I think is important. I mean, those are really stood up by Dahlgren. But for a small county like ours to have that many hotels in it is really beneficial. So we just need to figure out how to capitalize on that stuff.
All right, thanks, Nick. Any parting questions before we, Chip, you look pensive.
I have one last question. I'm sure you've not been asked this before. Well, or at least not been asked it today. When's Chick-fil-A coming?
So I'm glad you said that, Chip, because I've been talking to a Chick-fil-A franchise owner for the past 2 weeks, and I am trying to get him here so bad. But it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder than you would think. Franchises and retail and things of that nature, economic development really, you're not going to incentivize a Chick-fil-A. You're not going to incentivize these type of guys to come to your county. But you can talk their ear off and you can make the case all day long to them, and really try to get on their radar. And that's what I've been doing. I've been sending them demographic information. I'll send them a Google Maps to show them, like, look how many people eat at Chick-fil-A in the county and look how far they have to drive to get there. And he's like, you're right. You got a good point. I'm like, I know I do. So what are we waiting on? So it's one of those things.
I could be wrong, but my understanding was they were originally one of the tenants before the Walmart shopping center was built, back before it slowed down in the recession we had many years ago. Yep.
Well,
Yeah,
not only that, Nick, they better be thinking about all that traffic that comes down that street because so many people want to avoid 95.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you'd reach sainthood if you could get Chick-fil-A out there. That's for sure.
I know.
For real.
I said, if I get a Chick-fil-A in King George, they're going to rename the Rivercombe building.
Hey, Nick, how about Panera? Have we thought about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's I haven't spoken to anyone there, but one of the things that, and you guys know this, but when you have when you have restaurants like that, they like to be centered around nice residential developments. your townhomes, your apartments, and your single family home type ones. So, it's one of those things where I feel like if we get a nice sized development on a major corridor, 3 or 301, those things are going to come. It's just trying to find the right one. And speaking to that, what I'm about to do is reach out to an engineering firm to essentially lay out, see if I can get community development and the board of supervisors to work with me to sort of lay out what kind of neighborhood would we like to see and what kind of neighborhood would we approve. That has to do with apartments, the townhomes. Let's give the developer something. Let's give them an idea of what we will accept, right? With the setbacks, with everything. And then maybe it'll be a lot easier for them to get through the process. But sort of laying it out before they get there, I think will just go a long way. It's sort of one of those things where we're on the verge of growing really quickly, and we need to figure out the best way, to help them help us, or vice versa.
Well, Nick, this has been great information.
And one more question.
Go ahead, Dixie.
Hey, Nick, any idea what might go into the Gordman's empty space when it closes at the end of the month?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had anybody reach out to me yet. The developer hasn't asked for my help yet. I know it's pretty unfortunate because they just opened, and then as soon as they open, you get hit with COVID-19, and it's just what are you supposed to do? So I don't think it's anybody's fault. It's just one of those. It's just unlucky. I had another lady. She just opened up she got to the county in January, got her business license in January, opened up March 7th. A week later, everybody shut down, and she was right there in that same district. And she got hit with it hard too, small business owner. So it's just bad timing. But I haven't heard anything yet, Dixie.
Thanks.
Right. Final call for questions. Well, hearing
I have
none.
one more about the
Go ahead.
bridge.
I'm listening.
What is the estimated date for that?
2023.
23, okay.
It's right around the corner.
320.
I know. Oh, it's
Yeah.
very, it's by 2023, what we've heard is that the broadband should be completed, the broadband project should be completed, and the bridge project. So like I said, having community development and their information, and having all their systems and everything up to date, and, maybe even having an extra person on my staff is maybe required, because I can just really see the county being very busy around that time, and people looking at parcels to rezone, looking at places to redevelop. So it's just 2023 is going to be an interesting year, definitely.
Well, I think you've given us something to look forward to, Nick. That's great. When it will be finished, I will look forward to driving across that bridge and not seeing my life flash before my eyes for 5 minutes while I'm driving across. So thank you so much for your time, and for everybody on the call. I really appreciate you joining us today. Special big thank you to Topside Federal Credit Union. They had another meeting, so they had to run, or else they would have stayed and listened, because obviously they are one of our hometown credit unions, and they live and work right in that community. So thanks to them. If you have any trouble accessing your Starbucks gift card, please let me know. But we are going to do one more of these real estate roundtables. I'm trying to set something up with Spotsylvania. So we will hear similar information as Nick covered, but talk about a different county. So thank you so much for coming today. Nick, it's always good to chat with you. I don't think I have any future invites for you right now, so I'll give you a break for at least a little while. But I appreciate your all's time, and I hope you all have a great Thursday and the rest of the work week and into the weekend.
Yep, absolutely. And thank you guys for having me. And I want to give a shout out to Brad Johnson, because Brad Johnson, I see Brad Johnson up there, and Brad was one of the first people when I started in economic development in the FRA. And look at me now. Look at me now, Brad.
It's hard to believe it's been a year, dude.
I know, right? Yeah.
Doing a good job.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Brad. You guys have a good day.
I think when I first met Nick, you were an intern for FRA. Would that have been accurate?
Yeah, I was. Yep, exactly. So I had just fresh out of the military and just didn't know what I was doing. But you got to learn quickly. So.
You seem to have found your way, and a good one. So King George,
good job.
To have you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, everybody.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Nick.
see you,
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good week.
Thank